Good morning, YouTube. Welcome back to Lincoln Logs TV. I'm Fitz. I'm the guy that does all this stuff. So we're at our project house for the day. This is the handrail project we kind of talked about in our last video. We're going to do a little simple handrail on a small staircase here. It'll be pretty self-explanatory once we see the space and get a look at what we're doing. Really good little project. You'll get a little bit of information on this, on how to do it, or if you're going to have somebody do it, the questions to ask you might be able to take out of this. We'll talk about cost at the end. It just kind of give you an idea how much we would charge, how much my company would charge to do something like this, and really just kind of go through the process. We're not going to go into the detailed cuts and things like that, but we'll do a little bit of basic geometry on it and kind of give you an idea on how that works, get you in our wood shop and see how that stuff's set up and how we like to approach it. Thanks everybody for watching the last one. I had a few people guess correctly about where we're from. Yeah, we're from Indianapolis, Indiana. You see the flag behind me, that's our flag. Born and raised here, went to college here in Indiana. We really like a lot of things about Indiana. It's not always the warmest state in America, but we do think it's one of the best. We love it here. Our business does a lot of work with a lot of good people in this area, and that's kind of what our thing is here. So we're gonna get here and get started. If you got any questions, anything like that, hit it up in the comments. You got critiques, anything like that. If you like the channel, hit the subscribe. If you like this video, if you like this setup, hit that subscribe button. I think I'm improving the lighting. I think I'm starting to figure some stuff out with some of this lighting. So it's really not. I don't think it's going to be the challenge I thought it was. I just got to get better at editing. So yeah, so hit us up on any comments. Let's get this thing started. All right, so here's our setup. All right, we have an older staircase. You know, no big deal. It's 4 or 5 steps. It's not huge. Going to be a pretty short handrail, but one, you can see that the wall is pretty beat up. You can probably see the the scuff marks and stuff like that. People live here. It's just part of the way it works. The walls get beat up. This wall was painted a couple years ago. We will repaint this after we're done with this project. We'll retouch up the walls and get it all look nice and clean. But there's a lot of handprints and fingerprints here from people putting their hands on the wall to kind of stabilize themselves. And really, another part of it's a code violation. You're supposed to have handrail on certain heights and certain stuff. We're not going to argue and debate code on this channel, but there are some requirements here that weren't met initially that we're going to alleviate now. So it's real simple. You want your handrail to run parallel to the slope of your steps. So if we're running this way here, we want to come up to code height and run it this way here. How do you do that? It's really connecting 2 dots. It's very simple. So you want to draw a level line from the front of the top stair, the nose of the top stair, and draw a similar line from the nose of the bottom stair. Draw a line up and up, and then we'll measure up our height on that on both sides, make a line between those two connecting the dots, and we will have a perfect parallel line at the proper height for this handrail, okay? So it's real simple. You take a simple level, simple tape measure, and a simple pencil. This couldn't be more first grade, all right? So we set it up here. All right, we set it up. We're touching the bull nose here. We're touching the nose of the stair. We get it nice and level, and we draw a line. A line up in our area where we're going to be putting the handrail. Just line up so we can see. Again, we're going to be painting this wall, so I'm not worried about the line showing up. It's not that big a deal. We then do the exact same thing down low. Last stair on the tread, or on the nose, I'm sorry. On the nose, exact same thing. Line up the bubble, touch the nose of the stair. Extremely simple here. And same thing, draw the line, okay? Now, next question is, how high do we make the handrail? All right, so building code states that it's got to be between 34 and 38 inches. So we've got a broader handrail here. We're about 2.5 inches, 3 inches tall. So we're going to go about 37 and come down with that. We'll have to accommodate for 2 brackets that will hang on the wall, but we're going to accommodate the height of that stair rail. So we're going to go 37 on each line off of the ground, okay? I'm sorry, off the tread. So we go 37 there, and we come up here and go 37. All right. Now there's a way to check this that you're correct. When we draw this line, when we connect our 2 dots, once we draw the line, we should be 37 inches at the point of each tread, nose tread off of this. So let's do that now and double check it so we make sure we're right. We're going to line it up. Goofy level here, so we're a little bit a little bit short. We're gonna have to get our other level to extend this. Let's grab another level. All right, so my 6 foot level's on a different job site now, but we made a 6 foot level. 2 foot level, 4 foot level, $6 clamp. Makes it perfectly fine. And as long as you follow the correct side of your level, it's gonna be perfectly straight, all right? So let's try this again. Line up with our mark there at the top of that level. Line up with our mark here at the bottom of this level. Make sure we're intersecting at 2 points on the lines. We're good there, good there. Draw your line, all right? So that is where our handrail is going to run. That will be the very top edge of our handrail, okay? See the line's a little light, but it runs there. So let's double check our parallel. That's important. We want it to look good and look right, all right? Where are we? Bingo, 37. 37 and 37. So that's how you double check and make sure you're perfectly parallel, all right? So there's a few different ways you can do a handrail here, all right? You can use just a straight handrail. It terminates in there's no termination, just a butt into the handrail. It doesn't really look that nice. You see it a lot of times. I mean, carpenters do that. It's, you know, it's a way to do it. There's a few different ways that make it look a little bit nicer. Another way is you can have it come up and then return and turn into the wall, so it looks like it's coming out of the wall, turns, and then returns back into the wall. That's an easier, not an easier way, a little more complicated way to do it. A couple cuts, but it looks better. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do it similar to that, but I'm going to do some flat. We call it a flat hand top and a flat hand bottom, where the rail comes up and then it goes parallel to the ground for about 6 or 8 inches and then turns into the wall. A little bit nicer finish. It's a pretty nice house. We want to make sure we're matching kind of the style and stick with the spirit of the architecture here. So we wanted to make it look good. So next up, after we lay out our studs, got a stud finder up there. It's real simple. We'll lay out some brackets to get the brackets set up. Once we get the brackets set up, we'll head up over to the shop and get some fabrication going. All right, so let's talk about the brackets, all right? We're gonna have 2 brackets in this system. The way you find your brackets is, the first thing you need to do is you need to find a stud. All right, absolutely critical that these are attached to serious framing inside your wall. All right, if you were to use drywall anchors, mollies, toggle bolts, something like that, it'll look like it's solid. It will not stay on there. If somebody puts some serious body weight on there, which people do tend to do with handrails, it will fall and somebody could collapse and hurt themselves, could fall upstairs and really hurt themselves. So it's absolutely critical we get these into a stud in the wall. All right, if you have a really good builder, if you have somebody that had the foresight of knowing good handrail system was going to go up, they will embed a 2x8, 2x10, 2x6 in the range that we talked about earlier of height, so that anywhere you want to put a bracket in here, you could. Some handrails need to be 30 feet long. You know, you have multiple pieces and you need multiple brackets. This one is about 55 or 60 inches long, so we're only going to do two brackets. So the brackets are real simple. I bought them at Lowe's. They're less than $5 each. It's very simple, very strong, very sturdy. They look great. They match all the rest of the hardware in the house, the knobs and all the door stops and things like that. So they look good, they're strong, and we're going to mount them into 2 studs. All right, so how do you find the studs, right? Well, my old man taught me the old way: tap it with a hammer and listen for the change, which is effective, and I've done that 40 million times in my life. But there's some very simple things you can do to make it a lot easier, especially if you don't know the sound of a stud behind drywall versus a hollow cavity. All right, simple magnet. All right, they just call this the Stud Buddy. I picked it up at Sherwin-Williams. You know what it does is you kind of root around inside the wall, and there it is. So it's going to pick up the magnetic, or it's going to pick up the head of a screw or a nail that's holding the drywall on. That's where your stud is. Unless there's a misplaced screw, which happens, this is going to be your mark. So what we did was we made a mark here. All right, get my pencil out. So we made a mark there. Right there's our mark. That's where we're indicating our stud is. We just level up from there with our little level. All right, and we draw our line once we're level. All right, that is the area where we're going to have this. All right. Right there. So what I'll do is I'll do some probing. I'll get a screw in my drill and in my impact driver, and I'll make sure I know exactly the width of that stud. I want 2 points of contact on this particular bracket. 3 is best, and I can get 3. I know I can. But sometimes if it's off center a little bit, you can only get 2. That will actually hold quite a bit of weight. These are big, heavy wood screws, so they're going to hold some weight. But we want to find the center of that. So So this is one. We need two, all right? We need two brackets on this particular system because it's only it's less than 60 inches long. So what we do is we know that if we have a stud here, at a very minimum, we're going to be 16 on center going, I'm sorry, 24 on center going this way. This house was built in the early 1900s, so this is 16 on center. If you have a modern house, a production home, you know, a cookie cutter neighborhood, a McMansion, things like that, a lot of times those walls were 24 on center. That's code. It's not great. It's not preferable, but it's certainly and still allowable to code today. So you may be 24 on center. So what I'm going to do is I cannot find another head in this thing with the stud buddy, all right? So what I do is I already have a stud. That's really all I need to know. So I mark off 16's too close, all right? 16's way too close for this handrail. I want at least 32. If I go to the next 16-inch increment, I'm at 48. That's beyond my handrail, so that's not going to work. So we don't have much choice. I'm going to go 32, all right? So the 32 is you bring this over here, you draw your line out, and you mark it 32. So I marked it at 32 right there. Same thing I did over here. Line it up, draw the line, and right there is my range for what I want to be for the other bracket. So you'll have a bracket here and a bracket here that's going to hold up the weight of that handrail and hold people's body weight as they go, okay? Critical, you gotta have these things anchored in the studs. Anything less than a stud, anything less than serious framing, you're asking for trouble and big trouble. Somebody could get hurt. All right, so we're in the shop now. We're gonna fabricate this handrail, okay? Pretty simple, basic handrails, 2 3/8 by 3.5, I think. It's you know, I got it at Lowe's. It's made out of poplar. It's finger jointed prime. It's nothing fancy. I think it was 29 bucks on sale. 8-foot section. It's perfect for our 59-inch length that we've got installed here. I pre-primed it, sanded it, pre-painted it, and sanded it again lightly. And then once I get it fabricated, get it dry fitted, make sure everything fits. After I get it installed, I will do a final coat of semi-gloss paint on there. So a few things about this. So this is where it gets to be a little more of an anxiety contractor or a contractor anxiety factor. You only get one chance to cut these things. Because if you cut it wrong, you're out time and you're out money. All right, that's a big deal for us because if we're out of money, that means we're not making it. So that's a big deal. So we want to make sure everybody's heard it, measure twice, cut once. On stuff you're not used to, I frequently will cut test pieces out of scrap I have from around the shop, on a job site. I'll take test pieces, kind of figure out my angles, real simple. You know, like on this one, it was 30 degrees. It didn't look like 30 degrees, so I did a test piece. It was 30 degrees. I should have listened to Mrs. Bethur, my 11th grade geometry teacher. But it's 30 degrees, so we simply cut that angle in half, divide it by 2, 30 is 15, so our saw cut's gonna be 15 degrees. All right, another big thing about being in the shop is safety. All right, earring protection for high sound stuff, hearing protection, definitely face, I use a full face shield. It's more convenient for me, it's safe, it's shatterproof. It really is, it keeps the sawdust out of my face, it keeps it out of my beard. Really, safety cannot be preached enough anytime you're doing construction. This also counts as eye safety, you know, substitute for eye goggles, which I've never really enjoyed. They hurt my head, give me a headache on the back of my head, and messing my hair, and that's really, I just don't want to mess with it. So I bought a face shield, really nice face shield, spent a little money on it, and I use this thing a lot. I use this a lot when I'm in the shop. I usually just keep it on top of my head. So we're going to fabricate. It's going to end up being 6 pieces, so there'll be a few cuts here, but we're going to cut the length first, get our returns, get everything set up. What we'll do is we'll get it partially fabricated and go dry fit it. Well, once I dry fit it, we'll cut our returns to length, and then I'll prefabricate the whole thing in here. We'll screw it all together, get everything set up, and then we'll go and install it inside after the brackets are set up and ready to go, which they're ready. They'll be ready to go on the next section. But so safety. Miter saw, a lot of fun. One of my favorite tools that I own. Had this one for a while. This is my wood shop. We'll end up going through all this stuff at some point and just kind of do a shop tour. I've got all kinds of woodworking equipment and stuff that I make cabinets and built-ins and things like that. So just kind of pay attention. I'm gonna go real fast here, so pay attention. All right, so that's it. It took me about 6 minutes to cut all those pieces. Really, it went quickly for you guys because I did it in time lapse, but it's important that you take your time, get it right. It's really simple to, I shouldn't say simple, it's really easy to screw these things up. Geometry is not for everybody. Some people are algebra people. Some people are basic arithmetic people. Some people are geometry people. Really, just take your time. You'll probably notice me kind of stopping and fitting, making sure stuff looks good, nice and clean. By no means are all my joints airtight. We call them airtight when you can't even see the joint, but I do try to get them pretty clean. The saw blade's not perfect. It's a little bit beat up at this point, but it's still good enough for finished trim work. It's just not, not the most sharp thing. I need to take it and have it sharpened, but I've got my pieces set up. I'm gonna do a partial assembly here with some screws. I like to use finished trim screws, and we'll fill the heads, but get it partially put together, and we'll take it and mock it up on the brackets we set up, get everything measured out, get it temporarily set, and then we can cut our returns to length. These are the part that will go into the wall and look, make it look like it's coming out of the wall. Hang out, we'll see if I can get this thing going and make it. All right, so it's time to do our pre-assembly. All right, a couple things about this. When you're doing this stuff, it's important you have a very solid, flat, even workspace to work on. I just built this table. I mean, I didn't just build it, we built it last year, but it's just a simple table, plywood, 4x4s. It costs like $60 to build, and a couple layers of thick plywood. Nice and strong, nice and heavy, won't wobble around, won't move around on you, and it's a nice, flat, solid work surface. You don't want something wobbly. I think that goes without saying. You don't want anything wobbly, especially with this kind of finished trim work. It's pretty detailed. If you're gonna get paid to do it, then you have to make sure it is nice and even, nice and clean joints. Everything's, you can't be off by an eighth of an inch. It's not just kind of wing it deal. It's got to be pretty accurate. So with that, I like a really flat, nice, even work surface, and really take your time. We're gonna pre-drill the holes for this so we can get 2 or 3 screws in each joint. Make sure it looks really good. I actually like to use exterior trim screws. These are really grippy on wood, especially since it's poplar. It doesn't have a tendency to split. Poplar is a native tree to Indiana, so it holds up really well to the moisture and stuff like that in the air. Not outside if you're using it as an exterior trim, but these screws are great. It draws tight, it's got a ton of grip. They drive, they don't have a tendency not to want to strip. It's got a star bit head, so it gets good contact with the head, with the impact driver, which creates a lot of torque and gets stuff in there. But I do pre-drill all this. I want to make sure I'm not running the risk of splitting anything, because if I split it, then I have to kind of start some of this all from scratch, which is a way to lose money. So long screws, pre-drill all my holes, get everything lined up, take my time. I want to take my time, orient myself, make sure it's correct, make sure everything's nice and tight and everything's going to look good, so that when I do go to put a final coat of paint on it, it looks nice and smooth and looks like it's one giant piece of wood. All right, as you can see, we're pre-assembled now. It looks pretty good. It's a little tight. I think the saw may need a little bit of adjusting. My 15 degrees is good, but I think there's a little bit of a roll on my bevel a little bit. Not a big deal, though. I'm able to get them pretty tight. A lot of people may ask, or might ask, or might wonder why I don't use finish nails. Some people do. That's fine. I just like screws. It gives you a little more strength with it. Now, the advantage of a finish nail is, especially with an air gun, you can shoot it and there's no movement in the pieces at all because it happens so quickly and so fast. With screws, you kind of got to be, you can't go, you can only go as fast as your drill can drill the screw and your impact driver can drill the drill. And so I like to make sure I line everything up and I have to hold it super tight. This one actually, if you have an extra set of hands, this is really where something that would be great to have somebody hold the piece really tight for you. Clamps are good. I use clamps all the time. I've got 100 clamps in here, but with this project, with the angles and the nature of it, it's really hard. I would have to come up with a jig, and that's really not worth it, time-wise. This is a great apprentice type setup, to have an apprentice help you, like we would have the young guy in our, the FNGs, we like to call them, help out the one of our carpenters or one of our guys on the job site do this. So it's kind of the setup. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this inside. I'm going to fit it. I'm not going to include you guys now. I'm going to fit it on the brackets. Once I get it fit on the brackets, I'm going to have returns. All right, and I'm going to run over here and get the returns and show you that. All right, these are the returns. All right, they will mount onto it here, and I will cut them to length on the wall right here. So this will come out and turn. Nice soft transition. It looks great, and it really doesn't cost hardly any extra money and labor. It's leftover pieces from the cuts that I used. I just made sure I calculated my length in roughly, so I had plenty of room. So it'll sit, and we'll have one at the top. So really it's gonna come out of the wall, go flat, and then go up the stairs, go flat again, and go back in the wall. Just a little bit fancier. Honestly, it may take 20 more minutes of work. We don't upcharge this or anything like this. It just looks better. When people walk in and they say, oh, that looks really good, it's because just little stuff like this. It's real simple. It doesn't cost really any more money. But it looks great. It just looks great. That's kind of why we're here, to make stuff look great and help people with their projects. All right, so I'm gonna go dry fit this thing, take a couple looks at it, make sure we're good to go, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we got our dry fit done, our rough fit. It went pretty well, actually. It fit pretty well in terms of length, good length. Pitch was correct. Everything, we were following our lines nice and straight, which is what we're gonna do. Our flats look pretty good. The part that goes out flat parallel to the floor, not parallel to the stairs, those look pretty good. Joints look pretty good. I set it up on the brackets. Brackets are good. I will say this, you'll notice when we go to set this thing, my 16-inch layout on my studs wasn't even within a mile of being correct. Sometimes old houses, you never know what you're gonna get. On this one, I had to go another 8 or 10 inches to the east, I'm sorry, to the west to get that set up, to find it. But I found it. Got 3 screws in each stud, nice and strong. You can literally probably stand on this thing when it's done. It's gonna be nice and sturdy. So what we're gonna do is, this is kind of a critical point of our project. These 2 return pieces are small, they're poplar. It's not a hardwood, it's still a species that's pretty relatively soft, more like pine than red oak, but it will still split. It will still split. These are small pieces. See that? If I get too aggressive with that, I will crack and split that and have to cut a new one. So I want to take my time, make sure I get a good guide hole, pilot hole, and I'm also going to do a countersink hole, so I'm not putting too much pressure on these bad boys. I want to make sure that they don't split. So let's get this thing put back together. We'll get it dry fitted one last time and get ready for install. All right, so we got it assembled. I definitely had more problems with that top part than I did the bottom. I just couldn't, without an extra set of hands and no clamps, I really just didn't have a great angle on which to use my hands to drill into that thing. But it's going to work. It's fine. So the next step is we got to take it in there, got to mount it, make sure it fits tight against the wall, and then once it does, we'll mount it to the brackets and we'll be done. So we actually don't screw this to the wall at all. We actually screw it onto the brackets. So let's get this thing in there, see how it looks. All right, so here we are. We're with our setup. See, the brackets are set. This is where I thought the stud was. This is where it ended up being. So you can see quite a bit of difference. Couldn't find anything really solid over this side. Like I said, old house, you never know what you're gonna get. All right, so already had the brackets. I pre-attached the brackets when I did the layout for the returns. So the brackets are already on there. I just have to kind of finagle them on there, check the fit, and then if we're lucky, it's gonna go. All right, so I'm really tight against my line here. I'm just like a 1/16 off of my line that I originally wanted, but I'm okay with that because I can make that up once I tighten that bracket. See, it's gonna go right up. All right, so that's nice and tight to the wall. This one, once I tighten my bracket up, looks like I'm gonna be nice and tight up against the wall. Yeah, that's gonna work really well. I think that's gonna work really well. All right, so the brackets, we'll get these things tightened down and give the old strength test. All right, there we go. Not too bad, not too bad. I'll end up sanding this one more time real lightly, kind of clean up my joints. I don't think it's going to take any wood filler. Definitely will on the screw holes where I countersink everything, but that's to be expected with something like this. So yeah, let's get this thing wrapped up. I think we're in pretty good shape, nice and strong, nice and solid. I don't think grinding skateboard trucks on it, but I think it'll hold up pretty well over time. All right, so that's it for that one. So you can see it's pretty simple. I didn't do any finish painting. It's kind of the boring way to do it. Let me step out in the light so you guys can actually see me. Sorry, it's raining out now. You know, it's Indiana. What are you gonna do? Every 15 minutes is thinking weather changes. But although I'm not gonna complain, it was 55 degrees when I went outside this morning. It was 63 yesterday, 61 on Sunday. So for early February, we'll take this. So really, it ended up being pretty simple. I had a little bit of problem with that last cut, with that last return. I really think I need to kind of realign my saw, get a little bit more of the, a little more accurate with my bevels on those bad boys. They're just, you know, that saw is about 10 years old now. I've actually had it for a while. It cuts great. Maybe it's the blade, I don't know. You know, but I'm not chasing perfection. I'm chasing pretty damn good. If I'm chasing perfection, I'm just gonna die tired. So really, end of the day, good little project. Very simple. You know, I've been in this house 1,000 times, literally, no joke. I've been in and out here 1,000 times. Let's talk about cost. So the handrail was about 35 bucks. You know, if you buy new paint, you know, if you get good paint like Sherwin-Williams Pro Classic, which I highly recommend, use good primer, you're looking at probably 50 bucks in paint because you got to buy a gallon of it. But I always buy in gallons because it's just better to buy in volume like that. But you also, you can buy in quarts and probably do it all for about 35 bucks. In terms of labor, in terms of time, I pre-primed it, I sanded it, pre-painted it and sanded it. I'll paint it again, so that's probably about an hour of labor, hour and a half of labor, and then I've got about 2.5 hours into the actual you know, layout, the fabrication and the install. If I painted the walls for me, you know, it might be a little bit different deal. Really a small project, I would probably price this in the $450 to $600 range, just depending on how, you know, the finishes and stuff like that. Nice and solid, you know, in terms of labor, you know, depending on who you hire to do it. If you're hiring a professional to do it, you're gonna pay a pretty high labor rate for this because it's a small job. It's not unheard of for a finished carpenter to charge retail $60 or $65 an hour. Especially if you're getting the stuff like stair work, you know, baseboard and casing and stuff like this is a little more what I would call pedestrian in our industry. But if you get into staircase work, you could see some guys $75, $100 an hour to do that work, which it's worth every penny. Believe me, I've done a lot of stairs in my career. So really, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, yeah, I didn't use wood glue. Yeah, I use different screws. I do it different than some guys. I do it the same as some guys. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, shoot them out there. I'm always looking for better ideas, always looking to get better at what I'm doing, always looking for better lighting on some of these projects. This is a difficult one because there's a little tiny staircase at the bottom of them, or at the top of a mud room, at the bottom of a living room. It's kind of a little bit awkward, but you know, I'm just, you know, trying to make these things, like I said before, entertaining and putting out some information. So yeah, if you like the channel, if you can tolerate the sound of my voice, hit that subscribe button, help us out a little bit. Like I said, if you got any questions, any comments, let me know. I'm always going to respond back. Thanks a lot. Next time, I think we're going to be doing a really minor project for my brother, actually. He's got a house way out in the country, and they have big dogs, Great Danes. And that project is rescreening a screen door. You talk about handyman special, but he's my brother. I'm going to see if I can hook him up, and maybe we can go over that a little bit. You know, it won't be a real long one, won't be real in-depth, but it's something you can definitely learn how to do on your own. Yeah, got any questions? Hit me up. See you next time. Thanks for logging on, watching Lincoln Logs TV. See you next time.